HR is something you learn by doing. It's experience, it's not book. Yes, there are certifications, but those certifications are handy after you've worked a while and you know where you want to focus.
Welcome to another episode of Expert and African, where we spotlight African tech specialists and their journey from newbie to expert. On this episode, Weyinmi Barber, Softcom's head of HR, takes us on a ride into the complexities of the HR profession, including the peculiarities that led her into it.
So let's meet you. Weyinmi.
I am a HR professional, currently building my career in HR leadership in the tech startup space. And I really enjoy what I do. I'm very fortunate to have been someone who intentionally sought out a career path that I believed or found out was a good fit for me. And the last 2 years specifically has been HR in the tech startup space, which is a completely different ballgame, trust me. My background is in oil and gas, so I was at an oil and gas company for about 8 years prior to joining Softcom as the SVP of People and Culture, which is the head of HR. I joined Softcom about 2 years ago, and I've really had the opportunity to do a lot of organizational design and HR strategy. So in that regard, it's been a great fit for me. I've enjoyed the challenge. I enjoy being around tech people. I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy the energy. And most of all, I really enjoy that sense of connection to purpose. I enjoy many different things. I like to read. I like to watch movies. I also really like food. I like eating it more than I like cooking it, but from time to time I do cook it. And I also like to travel.
So do you have a philosophy or a favorite quote that guides you?
My favorite quote is, it's often ascribed to Warren Buffett, and he says that no matter what in life, some things just take time. You can't have a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant.
I take you back to the background, where you started from, what influenced the Weyinmi we see these days.
I was born in Warri, Delta State, and I spent the early part of my childhood there. I spent a lot of time playing outside as a child. Fun fact about me, my favorite time of the day is, you know, when it's evening, but just before it gets dark. It's called twilight, just when the sun is setting. And I realized after many years that the reason that's my favorite time of the day is because that was around the time that they would come and drag us in. Like, you've been running around with the kids in the neighborhood playing, and once I see that it's twilight, I know that I have like maybe 10 more minutes before they come and grab me. So that adrenaline rush always made those last 10-15 minutes so much fun, that once I look outside the window and I see it's twilight, I get that adrenaline rush again, even all these years later. I liked making things with my hands. So there was a time when my mom thought maybe I was going to be a fashion designer, because I liked crafts, like making dolls, and I would make clothes for my dolls. And I remember my mom had to get me this book about how to make a doll and make different, and she would buy me fabric and threads in different colors. And I was self-taught. I also liked reading a lot. I loved reading. So what that did for me is it exposed me to a whole world that was outside there, beyond my family, beyond my hometown. I also think it helped me in school, because when it came to subjects that required a lot of reading, I don't have a problem with it. I was very comfortable with like long passages, text. It helped my vocabulary very well also. I remember when I was 8 or 9, my mom got me this children's dictionary. And there was a period of time where I would come home every day after school, and while I'm changing, I would open the dictionary and try to learn a new word every day. I don't know why I used to do that, but I did for a bit. I went to secondary school. I went to boarding school in Benin City, and then university was Babcock. When I was in school, in my school, they make you do internships, which is good. I worked in the IT department. There was all this conversation about, oh, IT is the future, IT is the future. So it was like, okay, it's the future. Let me explore it a little bit, and then did it for the first 2 years. And anyway, like I said, I've now been told I wasn't given the right exposure, because a lot of what I did was support work and database management later on when I actually started working.
So would you say you had a privileged background growing up?
I would say that I grew up with parents who valued education. I think like a lot of Nigerian parents, right? My father was a doctor, so I remember that from when we were about 10, he would start asking us, what do you think you want to be? I started writing stories when I was about 8 years old. So again, I went through another phase where I thought, okay, I'm going to be a writer. And they were very encouraging. My parents were very supportive, and my father was the kind of person that from a young age, he was already asking us those sorts of questions. What do you want to be? Because he was someone who really loved being a doctor. And it was very obvious, like he felt like it was his calling. So I guess he wanted us to have the same experience. And when he sees that you are good at something, he will try to encourage you. So in that way, yes, I would say I was very lucky.
So let's talk about the challenges you faced and how you were able to get over them.
That's a good question. I think one of the challenges I faced was that sense of you are restarting your career all over again and struggling with the feeling of you were behind your peers, because the people that maybe studied medicine and knew that they wanted to be doctors, I mean, they had been doing that one thing since they finished. The people that studied banking and finance and went to work in the bank, they had been doing that one thing. So it's like you spent the last 2 to 3 years after graduation trying to figure out what it is you want. So literally the feeling of I'm starting all over again, feeling like you're a little bit behind and you have to catch up. So what that did for me is I really threw myself into it because I had that sense of I need to catch up. So it was like, I really need to learn as much as I can, as quickly as possible, so that I can start to see the kind of growth that I want for my career. Because of that, I was very intentional about developing myself. In fact, there was a time I had the opportunity to be moved to a different unit. The role was a bit more senior, so I would have gotten a pay bump. But I chose not to take the opportunity because the person I was reporting to at that time was somebody who was big on development. So that was another defining moment for me. Making that decision, and I won't lie, for a while afterwards, I was like,
what have I done to myself?
What have I done? You know, but at the end of the day, I knew that I took that decision for a reason. And honestly, I have no regrets. I don't say this to be cliche. I worked under my boss at the time and I learned so much under him because he was somebody that he used to say, look, if you go for a job interview tomorrow and they ask you what you do, you need to be able to speak to relevant experience. So he was very good about giving you projects, giving you opportunities to develop yourself. I learned a lot under my first boss at Orlando.
Besides the natural tendencies you had for what you do now, what were the skills you had to pick up, learning and climbing the ladder?
There are professional certificates out there, which I did a few. But beyond that, one thing I really had to learn was stakeholder management. When you work in HR, you do something called employee relations a lot. Every company has their policies and procedures, and maybe if certain people haven't adhered to policy and procedure, then you have to have conversations with them and with all the parties involved. So you have to do some sort of investigation, right? So what I learned is how to listen to all the sides of the story and then try to sort of make sense. And apparently I do it now in my personal life without realizing it, right? You really have to learn to, because early in my career, maybe one person comes and they tell me a story and it sounds so convincing. I had to learn stakeholder management and learn that things are often more complicated than they seem. And another thing I've learned about human beings and human nature is that barring cases of maybe where there is genuine mental illness, right? Maybe severe mental illness, 9 out of 10 times, if you think somebody's behavior was irrational or maybe doesn't make sense to you, it's because there's a piece of information you don't have. I have learned that on the job and I take it into my personal life. So you know how maybe, for example, someone says, oh, this person did this, and so you are thinking, why would they do it? There's a reason why they did that. So human beings, for the most part, are logical creatures, and we always have reasons why we do what we do. Now, if you understand the reason, you might not agree with their reaction, but you will understand why they reacted that way. So human beings generally are pretty logical, and we do things for a reason. There's a purpose behind our actions, behind our words, behind our behavior. You know, these are the kind of things nobody teaches you in school. But when you work in HR, you're constantly solving problems, because if two people in a team don't like themselves and things have gotten so bad they can't work together, it's HR. They'll come and put it on you. You know, if they get along, nobody comes to HR because, you know, even when they have disagreements, they know how to sort it out themselves. So people usually come to you when things have gotten so bad, and you just have to try and figure out how to help them. And You start that by trying to understand what is going on and trying to understand the whys behind each person's actions. Another skill I really had to learn was, I had mentioned earlier about organizational design. It can be a tricky part of HR. What that really means is that there's a people issue that the organization needs to solve. How do you solve it? So maybe the people issue is that there are too many people within the 5 to 10 year mark who are stagnant, who are not growing within the organization. How are you going to solve it? So you have to literally sit down and create something to solve that problem. And a lot of the times there's no textbook. You have to maybe start having conversations with your peers. So HR people work together a lot. Talk to people in other organizations. Have you experienced this issue? How did you address it? But then whatever it is they did, you can never copy and paste because your own organization is always different. So you then have to figure out how to make, even whatever advice or strategy you get, you have to still figure out how to apply it to your organization. And trust me, what I'm saying to you is a lot harder than it sounds.
I can sense the importance of HR from your discussion, but then I think you can be able to relate well to this because we deal with startups, right? Small teams, HR is not at the top of their list. So why do you think people do that, knowing that HR is very important?
People don't really understand how important it is. And so what usually happens with startups is they grow to a certain level and they start having HR crisis. And then at that point, they're running around looking for, a HR professional. And so usually, if you are the first HR professional to join a startup, a lot of the times, unless you're very lucky and maybe the founder or co-founder is somebody who has had exposure to certain environments, so they understand that HR is an important need from quite early on, what will usually happen is you're walking into a storm. You're walking into a crisis situation. The employees are angry, they're upset, things are not working. CEO doesn't know what to do. Oh yeah, we need a HR department now. People are asking questions. We don't have any policies. Nothing is working. So a lot of times, if you are the first HR person in a startup, you are literally walking into a storm. And like I said, it sometimes takes that storm for the leaders to then realize, okay, we need a HR team. We can't handle this on our own. We need proper processes in place. We are not hiring the right people because we don't know how to go about hiring the right people. We don't know how to design the right recruitment process for us to attract the kind of people we want to attract, when and how.
If somebody is thinking of going into HR, what would you tell the person?
Depending on where you are in your career, my advice might differ. So if, for example, you are still in school or you're a fresh graduate, what I would tell you is look for opportunities to do internships. Intern in HR departments of companies, right? If you can do 1 or 2 or 3 different internships in different industries, so you know what it is, how does HR look in FMCG? How does HR look in banking sector? So what this will do for you is it will let you understand the kind of HR you prefer. Because HR in banking, for example, is very different from HR in tech and startups, very different. So that exposure too will help you. And some people prefer that sort of routine structure. So it depends on the kind of person you are. So that's the advice I would give an early career person. For someone who has mid-career, maybe they have several years of experience, but they want to pivot, I would say if you already have a job, then go and have a conversation with your line manager and with the people in the HR department. Let them know that you are interested. So if there's an opportunity for you to move to the HR team, right? Because if you try and look for a job outside your company, you're not likely to get it because on paper, you don't have the experience. But if you've been working for a company for a while, people already know you, you've formed relationships with people. So just have a conversation with your HR department and let them know this is something you're interested in. That's an easier way to pivot. So if and when a position comes up, or depending on the nature of the organization, they can even create one for you. You start your journey there. A lot of people think HR is just HR. But the same way you have different kinds of IT experts doing different things, and the fact that you work in finance, there's a difference between being a payables officer and being in the treasury team. You also have different aspects to HR. There's learning and development. There's talent acquisition or recruitment, as some people call it. There's compensation and benefits, which has to do with rewards. There's HR business partnering. There's all these different aspects. So I was really lucky that I got to do different roles. So it's not like I was doing the same thing. And what that helped me do was I had time to try and figure out where in HR do I want to focus, because I did different things. I did compensation and benefits for I think about 3.5 years. And I even thought, oh, maybe I want to be a comp and ben specialist. But at the end of the day, I realized that the aspect of HR I really liked or something called organizational design. So that's when you develop HR strategy and you come up with initiatives to try and solve problems, right? Whether it's building a career framework, developing a talent management framework and applying it to your organization.
So what's your favorite part of doing this?
I like organizational design, I like HR strategy, I like creating initiatives to solve problems. I like sitting down and the thinking part, and then you roll out the initiative and you see it work, and then you're getting feedback from people. It's very satisfying. One of the most satisfying experiences I've had in Softcom was at the end of year December party we had, Christmas party last year, when I had Softcomers from outside Lagos, because we have an office in Abuja, coming up to me and say, thank you so much for all you've done for the culture. So moments like that can be very rewarding and very fulfilling. When you've had the opportunity to solve problems, to have impact, positive impact. So whether it's someone who, I've been doing product management, but I think I want to move into front-end engineering, and you sort of help them on that journey. You give them the tools, the guidance, the direction, the opportunities to practice, and then they move into that role. Like being able to solve those sort of issues for people, it really gives you the opportunity to impact people's lives. That's what I really enjoy.
What other experiences stand out for you in doing this job that you do?
Some of my big wins, I think Softcomers probably know what it is, but I'm not sure it's something that I can discuss publicly. Just really things around making Softcomers happier, right? Also, when I joined Softcom, there was no career path. There was no policy around careers. There was no clarity on how you could grow within the organization. I was very privileged to be able to build the first career framework for Softcom. So now every Softcomer, they know their band level, they know what the next level is, they know what they need to do to go from here to here, they know the time of the year promotions happen. So we built a policy around that and we shared. That has really helped a lot in terms of providing clarity. So now when people come to you and ask, and of course sometimes people will not read the documents and they'll come and ask you questions, but the difference is now we have answers. Building a career path for a startup is a very difficult thing, okay? Sometimes what happens in the startup space is people change their roles. They come in as one thing, 6 months later they are doing so. They come in through finance, 6 months later they are doing sales, 6 months later they are doing products, and you have to figure out a way that they can grow. So it's a very difficult thing, but being able to solve for that was definitely a high point of my career.
Spending 8 years already in HR, 10 years, I think you're in the best place to say these are the specific soft skills somebody that is going to HR would need. These are the certifications you should get. So can you just lay that out?
In terms of soft skills, communication, obviously. So communication speaks to both reading and writing, stakeholder management, entry-level behavioral science, just learning to read people, body language, like I said, things they say and things they don't say. Good presentation skills also, because you regularly find yourself addressing people, both small and large audiences. So if you're not very good with putting together presentations or speaking in front of audiences, is something you really need to develop. If you have a fear of crowds, it's something you need to conquer as a HR professional. It's very important. Technical skills. So it depends on what area of specialization you want to focus on. If you want to be a comp and ben specialist, you need to be very good with Excel or any spreadsheet software. So whether Excel or Google Sheets, you need to be very good with spreadsheet software, because comp and ben people for a lot of organizations, they are the ones who run the payroll, they are the ones who do salary surveys. So you have to be comfortable with numbers and you have to be really good with your spreadsheets, right? It's important. If you're going to be a HR business partner, it's really things like project management, because you might find yourself, well, again, it depends on the type of organization, but sometimes for larger organizations, HR business partners find that they have to implement. So at the top, the HR leader designs a strategy, and then you, the business partner, you are responsible for implementing it, and there are timelines. You need to get everything done by so date, and it involves people and getting people to cooperate. If you want to be an L&D expert, L&D stands for learning and development. Some people who thrive in learning and development have a teaching background, or they are good teachers. Again, it depends on the kind of organization and even your role within the L&D department, because there are people who do the administration part of it. There are people who do the strategy part of it. There are some organizations who completely outsource all the learning interventions. But for some organizations, employees, members of the learning and development team have to take some courses. If you don't have a teaching background, there are courses you can do to teach you how to teach, how to instruct a class, how to prepare notes, how to give assignments. So if you want to do learning and development, that's a very useful skill to have. So like I said, it depends on what aspect of HR where you want to go.
I believe that, well, if I'm not assuming, you have some low points while you've been working as an HR personnel. So is there any you want to share?
I'm happy to. A lot of HR people can attest to what I'm saying. Again, this depends on the kind of organization you work for, but it can be very lonely and isolating being the HR professional because people almost see you like the police of the company, right? So people are having a conversation and you're like, hi guys, HR is here. They've kept quiet. So it's like people forget that you're an employee too. People forget that you also have a career that you're trying to build. You have your own goals and aspirations, right? They don't see you as an employee in the same way they see themselves. Like I said, they see you as the police or the warden. And so sometimes people will not protect you the way they will protect their fellow people who they feel like their fellow. It's almost like people are comfortable doing certain things that they know will get you in trouble. So that sense of isolation sometimes, feeling like your peers act differently around you because they see you as HR. So that's one of the aspects of HR that is less fun.
How is an average day for you? So we can just talk about personal and professional.
It depends on what's going on at that point. If, for example, there's a lot of recruitments going on, then an average day within that period will be things like me attending interviews, reviewing feedback, having conversations with the talent acquisition manager on what can we offer this person, negotiations, developing assessments, reviewing assessments for job candidates. If it's appraisal time, then obviously I'm spending a lot of my time on performance management and performance appraisal activities. So everything from administering, having conversations with the heads of teams to say, oh, okay, your objectives for the quarter, can we help you review them? Have you had performance conversations with your people? Can we review? If people need to be, put on performance improvement plans. So it depends on what is happening at that point in time. If we're planning for, at the end of every month, we have our town hall meetings we call Carpe Diem. If it's the last week, I'm probably running around with someone on my team trying to plan Carpe Diem. So it really varies depending on what's going on at that time. Right now at Softcom, we work hybrid mode. So we work from the office 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, and then the other 3 days we work from home. So if I'm working from home, I usually wake up around maybe 6:30 to 7. And I go around my house and look for anything that needs to be done. I find that it's better for me to do it with that morning brain so that I don't get overwhelmed, and then I might exercise a little bit and then have a shower, get dressed. Like, it just helps put you in that mind frame. Because once you sit in front of that laptop, before you know it, it's 5 p.m. and it's like, where did the day go? But if it's a day when I'm coming to the office, then I don't have time to be walking around my house or exercising or all of that. It's just, okay, I need to get here on time, beat the Lagos traffic, you get here, and then the advantage of working from the office is you get to see people, you get to have conversations, because sometimes working from home, you send somebody an email, they've not seen it, they've not replied, but by the time you see the person in the corridor, you're like, please come, can we quickly come to an agreement and move on? So yeah, I like both. I like coming to the office and I like working from home because there are some things that just move faster when you can have face-to-face conversations.
What tools do you use that make you productive, either at work or in your personal life?
Setting alarms to remind me, like using the alarm feature, both on my office email, my phone, like it helps me remember things. I set alarms for the most random things. It really, really helps me be productive. Another thing that helps with productivity is knowing what time of the day you function best, whether you're a morning person, afternoon person, or evening person, so that you can schedule your most important tasks for that time of the day.
This is like the final question. Is there this thing that you really like to do and you can't do it now, maybe because you don't have the time yet, or you just don't have the resources, or you just don't have the capabilities? Yes, it's there. That's one thing.
Yeah, so in my head, I think of myself as an adrenaline junkie, right? So I want to do a few things that I've not done, like bungee jumping, skydiving.
Are you Nigerian?
By the grace of God.
We don't take risks like that in this part of the world, but it's nice to hear.